All right, welcome back to the show. Hopefully you enjoyed the Congo Hour. Again, we're going to stay on till 9:30, so we call this Congo Hour Overtime. I'm joined tonight by my dad is here. Finally made it. I guess he got lost. He only lives about 5 minutes away. I'm not sure what happened to him. He's supposed to be here at 8:30. And when he's not on at 8:30, he gives me a hard time, but now it's almost 9:30, and he's just now showing up. But I'm glad you're here, brother. Appreciate you coming. Before we start talking, Dad, I want to wish the late Pop Henry Bennett happy birthday. I want to wish him a happy birthday. He would have been 96 years old today. So we just want to recognize him, and that's coming from all of his family members to Pop Henry Bennett, who would have been 96 tomorrow. And I also want to just have a give my condolences to, I'm sure you probably don't know, but his name is Thomas Clay. He's known as TC. A very talented young musician. He's from here, and he passed away. He passed away earlier today, I think, or maybe yesterday. But he's really known in the gospel music world. He was an extraordinary talent, and he's definitely going to be missed. So again, I just want to send my condolences to all of his family. Welcome to the show, man.
Well, welcome to the Overtime show.
Yeah, Overtime. We've been showing some pictures of you from yesterday at Dell State's parade.
The whole time I was down there, I was thinking about you.
Were you?
Yeah, I was thinking about Wilmington.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see. Dr. Williams has done a fantastic job.
Yes, he has.
The leadership there made the difference in that school. And his ability to communicate, coordinate, and make a difference. And that kind of leadership is required in Wilmington. I was thinking about a man like Dr. Williams leading Wilmington, because Wilmington needs that kind of leadership. That can put together all the banks, all the legal institutions, all the businesses, because Wilmington is a fantastic city.
Right.
It's just big enough to be able to make a difference. And the fact that our people that win positions in a city of how many?
Around 70,000.
70,000. Can win with 2,000 or 3,000. It's that we have a sleeping giant.
Right.
And the first person that wakes that giant up will be able to get things done in this city. Because of 70,000 people, it could make a big difference to our Attorney General who has to run, our Insurance Commissioner, our who else is a statewide person. And all those statewide people may have to depend on 70,000 people that influence people out in the county also. So I see that sleeping giant as what I call a hidden threat that could make changes. And if we keep up and don't keep up, there's going to be a lot of threats that come along that prevent us from being successful. And so we have to look at ourselves as a community. And that community has to be so well organized that at any given time, that organization is almost like the National Guard can be called in case there's something just happens. You call them within an hour, they're there. I think that the information that will make Wilmington, and remember what Dr. Williams kept talking about, being excited.
Right.
Wilmington should be an exciting place where everybody plays a part and they carry out the responsibilities that they have for just living here. And not only living in Wilmington, but living in a community that they live in, that they take. I'm sorry.
Right,
go ahead.
I was thinking about that earlier. Funny that you say that. I guess I've been thinking about it lately a lot, but earlier today I was thinking about, and I mentioned it briefly to Steve, who was on here just a little while ago. Sometimes, well, most of the times when in politics, when we're elected into offices, the community kind of falls back, or they're not as engaged as we all should be, and they expect us to steer the ship. But really, it's the community who should be steering the ship. And at any point in time, council members should be able to call on 100 people at least to show up at a meeting, to show up at in a school board meeting, to show up in Dover with whatever may be happening that's going to affect Wilmington, because that's when I believe those people who are in those positions will begin to respect the sleeping giant that you were just talking about in Wilmington. And until then, people know that they only have to pay attention to certain pockets of Wilmington, because we don't vote as much as much as we should. So a lot of times politicians and different organizations, they only pay attention to the areas of the city or to groups in the city who vote. And I think it's our responsibility to change those dynamics.
Well, I don't agree with you.
Okay.
Because you've got to have the leadership. And I see council people as the leadership.
Maybe I didn't explain myself thoroughly. When I say that the council, we are the leaders, but a lot of times when we go to Dover to try to fight for something in Wilmington, there are not enough people with us to say this is really what we want. So if those legislators in Dover or if school boards in the county only see us, they only see a resolution coming from council, or they only hear a conversation that council members may have with them, instead of the hundreds or maybe thousands of people who think just like we think, and we're their voice, I think that would make a difference in that whole legislative hall and the steps out front being full of people, versus 4 or 5 council members who are speaking on behalf of those people. You don't agree with that?
But I think you're putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, how?
Because you going down there is not going to make a big difference.
Right.
But if you create an organization that you send down, you shouldn't even have to go, because you should be creating the leadership, and the leadership decides that they're going to protect whatever it is. You will be an enabler. And so you do the training, you do the sensitivity, you do the knowledge, and you make the model that they take down there because of your experience and knowledge. But if you go down there believing that they're going to follow you without that information and without that excitement, as we talked about, it's never going to work.
Oh, I think we're saying the same thing.
Maybe not.
It seems like we're saying the same thing, that it has to be more than...
Yes, but before you go to Dover, you've got to get that excitement, and that's where your leadership comes in.
We're saying the same thing.
So you've got to be able, in your district, there are, most of, I believe when I was a community organizer, I created a model. I helped to create a model, and I was an enabler.
Okay.
And what I did, I took that to the community and asked them if that's something that they wanted to deal with. They said no, but create another model that they wanted. The excitement has to come from within that organization. But not only should you have that model, that all other 11 people has to create a model, that they create that kind of excitement that takes them to Dover. Dover can't fight that.
Right.
Okay. But it's going to take a long time to get people that I guess convinced that they are important. Because most people now don't believe in the system. So they stay home because they say, what am I go out there for?
All right. So how do you think that changes?
By little by little having successes doing little things in the community.
Like, for example?
Have a block party. and get to know some of the kids, and have the kids to begin to do a cleanup in their neighborhood every Saturday for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And the people see the neighborhood changing. The kids are doing things helpful. They had went around, sold ice cream, and they were able to buy these beautiful little trash cans that you put on the corners where they're not littering. Just little things like that. Mm-hmm. Having some kind of group that older people who can't keep their house up. You might have a group of guys that volunteer to cut grass, and that begins to. So when you begin to get that, they're going to want. Everybody wants to deal with success, mm-hmm. and success is a process. It don't just happen tonight. It happens over a period of time. But those many successes, as I was telling you, gets the big idea that we're going to make change in Dover.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Sometimes you come on and you say some pretty good things.
I understand.
You understand? So what else do we want to talk about?
Well, I want to talk about the fact that we still have another election, mm-hmm. and that people shouldn't be confused with all of the slanted information that they may get. For instance, yourself. Mm-hmm. You are a proven person that has shown interest in the community and showed commitment to the 2nd District. Mm-hmm. You work with the kids, the seniors, and whenever you can be helpful, you're there. Now, it's not. Now, somebody may get in there and say, "Well, he don't come to all the community meetings," but the fact that you've had results in all these things and they've gone well as a part of your leadership is what they have to count on. Mm. And they can't count on anybody doing that. They may come to the meetings, but to get the kind of results of activities in that community that you're sure of, that has promoted just good community success, mm-hmm. it would take a lot, yeah. because of the resources. See, people can do a lot of things, they can hope and all that stuff, but you got to have resources to make things happen. You have created a system where you can pull on resources to make your things happen. And so with your 8 years of experience and the fact that you have not failed your community in any way is what people need to say, well, look, I know that Trip he takes care of all of our seniors. Whenever we need something, kids come to him. As I mentioned the other time, you was taking the campaign money and buying the guys lunch with it. That's not true. But a kid came by, instead of you just blowing money out for campaign, you was trying to help him to get a lunch. Mm-hmm. And so it shows your commitment to the community and what you'll do for kids with the cleanup, let's say. Going to Dorney Park, taking that many students to Dorney Park. I guess one of the projects that you'll try to do now would be the African American museum down in D.C.
Yeah, I haven't.
Those kind of activities grow your community.
Mm-hmm. And even I guess we have to preface that by, a lot of people may not know that I do have another opponent in November. I have a Republican opponent. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're talking about. My election isn't over yet. I still have an opponent in November. And again, I do want to thank everyone who has supported me throughout my 2 terms on City Council. I still need your support so that we can continue to do some good things for Wilmington. So on November the 8th, looking forward to being reelected into City Council for the 2nd District. And a couple of things that I want to do. This term, I want to reestablish some of the, at least one of the civic groups that hasn't been active for a few years. I want to kind of get that neighborhood back up and running, and so they can have another civic group and do some of the things that we were just talking about. It was a group that where the president moved out of the city, moved out of the district, and so the civic group kind of fell apart. But I want to bring that civic group back up. And I guess legislatively, if anyone out there ever checks my record, like, I have never been one to vote for anything that's not going to be good for the city and good for the district. I don't vote based on my relationships with anyone. I consider myself a friend with everyone on council, with everyone in the administration, but I don't let that blur of what my responsibility is. So if it's something that I think is right or something I think is wrong, that's how I'm going to vote for it. And if the residents have voiced their opinion to me to vote a certain way, or how they feel about certain things, that's what I do. I don't do it because I'm friends with somebody on council or I'm friends with somebody in the administration. I have never done that. And I think that's what people respect the most. And that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, is that I've never sold out because of friendship or relationships. It has put a strain on some of our friendships and relationships on council and the administration, but at the end of the day, I have to feel good about how I vote on a particular thing. I would hate to let influence, like a friend influence me to vote a certain way when it's not in the best interest of our community as a whole, or specifically the second district. I've always been hard on the administration about budgets, and how I think that the administration needs to publicly present their budgets to the just like every other department does, and the same thing for city council. I've been talking about that for years, and most of the time I don't support the budget because I think the process is flawed, because I think that it's wrong for us to require every department in the city to publicly present their budget and do it on TV, but city council has never done it, and the administration has never done it. So hopefully, whoever the next mayor will be, they will consider that, consider presenting their budget. A lot of times they don't, and I guess I researched and I asked why it was never done, why city council and the administration never did it, and they said it was just an agreement between the two. It was like a handshake agreement that we don't have to present our budgets, but we're going to require every other department to do it. We're going to critique every other department. And the information is available, so I don't want to put it out there like the information isn't available, but if someone ever wants to research it, but they don't have to research those other departments because we publicly present them. So it's always been a struggle of mine to approve a budget where the public wasn't privy to understanding what was in that budget. So how can we say, I'm going to approve this overall budget, but you don't know everything that it's made up of, because city council and the mayor's budgets weren't always publicly presented. And it has created some hardships. But I'm okay with that, because I think that I've done right by people who have entrusted me to do the right thing in the district and in the city. I guess I get a lot of appreciation for taking that stance, and I'm okay with it. So, and I know that this next group of council members who are coming on, and whoever the next administration is, hopefully we can all get along. Hopefully we can all work together to do what's best for Wilmington. But when we don't agree, hopefully we can still be friends and still keep the city the main focus, and not let our relationships get in the middle of that. A lot of times, when things are coming up in city council, they try to get a gauge of who's for it or who's against it before they bring it to council. But I think that something is right, just bring it before us and let us talk about it and let the public see, how we stand and how we think and how we're representing those people who have voted us into office and are trusting us to do the right thing. And we're going to have a lot of new council members. I'm looking forward to working with everyone. I think it's a great thing that we're going to have, that people are that excited about being a part of the process. I think for far too long, we just had the same group of people, being involved in politics. And I don't want to be a career politician. That's not my goal. My goal is to bring up other people who have passion for the city and a passion for the district, and who I believe are going to do the right thing and get involved and be a part of politics. Like I don't want to be a city council person for 40 years, because that's not. I think that's not a that's not a justice to the other people who want to be a part. And I shouldn't take advantage of my position and not allow another person to come up and get the benefits and know how exciting it can be to be a part of the whole political process. So I'm looking, like I said, I'm looking forward to working with them. We're not always going to agree. Hopefully we can always remain friends. I think it's good when we don't agree because people see things differently. But I think we should always be able to present ourselves and let people know why we think or why we vote a certain way. And I didn't even realize that it's 9:30. So we're going. Did you want to say anything? But it's 9:30. We have to break.
Okay.
They're telling us that we have to.
Okay.
We have to stop.
We have to. I want to make something clear. I was just teasing a few minutes ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was saying that you took your campaign money.
Hey, I don't know you say that for.
Huh?
I was like, what is he talking about?
No, because he doesn't have a campaign. You never had a fundraiser.
Right.
You use your own money, and I know folks sometimes say the wrong thing and take that out of context.
Right.
But I was just trying to illustrate just how committed you are to your community,
Mm-hmm.
that you take money out of your pocket
Right.
and give it to kids when they seem to be having some problems. And I think that's the kind of image I want you to have. I look forward to working with you. If you're blessed and have an opportunity to serve again, I want to serve with you in the 2nd District, where we can do some organizing
Mm-hmm.
and create the kind of opportunities for people to get just what you say and develop leadership.
And I think it's important that you not only work with me, because you do bring a great wealth of knowledge to the table, but it's important that you work with all of us. I think you're recognized as being a leader in this community and being someone who is very straightforward and honest and keeps the community first. So I think it would be a crime if you only work with me. Like, we need you to work with Ash Turner, who will be the council person over in the 5th District. We need you to work with the new at-large people. Like, we need you to work with Hanifa, who's going to be our president, because I think that people respect your opinion and they know that you're always in it for the right reason. So I wouldn't want you to work only with me. Like, I would expect you to work with all of us and work with whoever the next mayor is going to be, whether it's Mike or whether it's Steve, because I think you bring just a wealth of knowledge that it's a rare quality that you bring to the city of Wilmington, and I think that would be a crime for you just to only give that to me. So, I mean, I appreciate what you want to do for the 2nd District and for me, but I think that you have to do that for the city as a whole.
It would be a pleasure to do that. There was one other thing I wanted to speak about.
And I think we have more time. I don't think Dave, is that right? We have Dave. Dave's over there asleep. Dave. So are we okay with time? We okay? Okay, so we can keep going.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I just think that Wilmington is such an exciting city,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that the people need to give more input
Mm-hmm.
on what they need in housing or whatever it might be. And I think that once this kind of effort gets started and we get this kind of drive moving,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see Wilmington the way it was years ago, where we had nice neighborhoods, we had our own lawyers, we had our own doctors, we had our own dentists, and you begin to have value for one another
Mm-hmm.
and what this community could be like. We have our own stores,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, get the kind of training to run a great store, not just a few bottles of this around and you never have anything. I would like to see that happen,
Mm-hmm.
where our communities, the police would be a part of that community, the housing people would be a part of that community. I believe that it would cut down the cost of doing business in the city if people began to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Like keeping your homes up, keeping them painted, keeping the streets clean. If a person that's not desirable comes in, we address them and say, here's how we live here, and and maybe sign a petition to get them out, because you don't want that kind of person come in and deteriorating everything that you've worked hard for.
I think that's important that we try to, before we sign that petition to get them out, that we try to bring them on board.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's one of your biggest passions too, so I don't want people to get that misconstrued, because one of your biggest things is always rehabilitation and giving people opportunities and giving them, I guess, knowledge on how we can be better. So I think that's important that when there is a neighbor who may be a nuisance, we call them nuisance properties, that we try to bring them along and not just automatically call the police and call L&I and call people to try to accumulate points and get them out of the neighborhood. I think it's important that we teach them, because all they're going to do is go to another neighborhood and do the same thing. But when we try to change their mentality, I think that's when we win. We don't win by kicking them out of the neighborhood. I think we win when we try to change the way they think and the way they live.
Yeah, I think that the first thing when somebody moves in is you welcome them into the community.
Right.
And you can do that with a pie, with a case of sodas, or whatever it may be. Say to the guy, if you don't have a lawnmower, you can use mine until you get established. The welcoming people into the neighborhood and making them be a part of it, offer them a part of the organization. Like, there may be, again, I'm into this model thing, and you introduce them to the model, and what are the parts of the model that they can possibly be a part of, which gets them excited and gets them involved in whatever you're doing. And I think that takes the negativity out and helps them to begin to understand what they have to do to be successful in the community.
I think one of the biggest things that we have to do in Wilmington is recognize the importance of the African American Festival and what it was and how we need to get it back to get it to where it should be. I think we spend a lot of time and a lot of money in celebrating other cultures, and nothing's wrong with that. I don't want to put that out there that I think anything is wrong, but it is something wrong when we don't do the same for our culture. I think that we have to realize the importance of getting that back to where it's it's the premier festival in the city. We want to get it to a point where all other cultures want to come and be a part of it, because like you said earlier, people want to be a part of success. So I think that we really have to work individually and as community groups, just to realize how important that is and what that does to the psyche of our especially our young children, and just to African Americans who live here, to realize that we have a stake in making sure that that event is just as big, if not bigger, than any other event. It should be bigger than any other festival in the city. I think that would go a long way into restoring our sense of pride and our sense of who we need to be to our neighbors.
Yeah, it was very interesting yesterday. I was fortunate enough to sit with the president of Delaware State University yesterday. But in our booth, and the people that sat beside Cherry and I, was the mayor of Dover. And the mayor of Dover went to Delaware State University. His wife went.
Okay.
His kids had an opportunity to...
Hold on 1 second, Dad.
Okay.
Guess there's a request to take some calls. Hold on 1 second, please. Thanks for calling.
But because they went, it made it very diverse, because their kids went. So, and in our communities that we build, we have to make it so that everybody wants to live there,
Right.
not just a few. You can get that.
I got a note that my mom's watching, and she said she wants us to take some phone calls. So that's why that's why Dave came over here and set up the phone line. Thanks, Mom. We guess we got caught up in.
Well, I guess we talk too much, huh?
Thank you for calling. You have a question or a comment?
Yes, I have a comment, Mr. Congo. I think that that it was a very important point that you made as it related to the council persons being able to agree to disagree. And after all, they are to meet the needs of the people, and that's where their focus should be, in education, neighborhoods, and crime.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for calling. I appreciate your comment. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's where we begin to break down as a I guess as a force on council, a force that we could be when we don't agree, and we take it personally, and now we're not speaking to each other, or we don't support each other in other legislation because they didn't support me last time. Now I'm not going to support them, and we're being counterproductive. And the only people that really lose are the residents. You know, all of us on council, we're going to be fine. You know, financially, we're going to be okay. But we're not there for that. We're there to help bring our communities up to another level. And when we start fighting and just not supporting things just based on revenge and you know, trying to pay somebody back, I think that's where we have to address it. We have to realize that we can't keep going like that, because it's just not fair to our constituents, and it's going to happen. It's inevitable that 13 people, you know, are going to disagree, and that's fine to disagree. But we have to just be okay with it and be able to move on, and be able to say, okay, I didn't agree with this, but if I'm coming with this piece of legislation, I would love your support. And I have to be able to support it, because it's not about the person, it's about the community. Yes, thank you for calling.
Hi, Mr. Trippi. This is Lynette calling you.
Hey, Lynette, how you doing?
I was watching it early today.
Yes.
On Channel 28, and I seen Mr. Gene that used to work for the housing authorities.
Okay.
And I know they was talking about him and Herman Holloway were on together. And when Mr. Gene used to work for the housing authority, they had got rid of a lot of people that was working for the housing authority, and he was one of them. And I can't understand why he was sitting up there telling Herman Holloway that she's trying to get back with the housing authorities and everything, and it's not right.
Okay.
Because he was doing wrong too when he was up there working too. And
okay.
when he would say things, he would say it like in a Spanish way when you couldn't understand what he was saying, but I knew what he was saying.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate that.
So please check that out.
Okay. All right, we will.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, that's another. I'm glad she brought that up. But another one of my my goals is to continue the conversation around you know, how our seniors are protected who live in the high rises throughout the city. You know, I was the I know I should, but I don't really like talking about some of my accolades on council, because it's just not. I don't really do it for that. Like, I don't do it to come on here and talk about it. But I was the council person who requested that the Wilmington Housing Authority and some other organizations who you know, own the high rises in the city, to address some of the issues that the seniors were having. You know, the seniors were going through a lot of things. Elevators not working consistently, and you know, in their perception, not being treated with kindness and respect from the management, and you know, the buildings just not being up to par. So I had you know, WHA, and we reached out to some other organizations, but they weren't able to make it to come and talk about it publicly in one of our committee meetings. And I don't think that should have been a conversation that was that needs to be held behind closed doors, because I think that. And we also invited seniors. We gave seniors rides so they can come and tell their story. It's one thing for me to talk about. Thank you for calling. Hold on one second, please. You know, it's one thing for me to come on or to be on council and talk about, even be here and talk about some of the conditions that the seniors are sharing with me, with you know, about their living conditions. But I think it just sheds a whole new light. And it brings a whole new dynamic to when that senior can come and tell their story, when they're not afraid to tell their story. So I had the, we had the seniors come down to the city council building and talk about some of their frustrations, talking about some of the, some of the issues that were going on in their high rises. And we're going to have another one, hopefully next month, or definitely before the New Year's. Waiting to reach out to the new president of WHA, and then, because I think there's a misconception that WHA owns all of the senior high rises, and they don't. Some of them are privately owned also, so we have to reach out to them so they can be a part. They can be a part of the meeting and hear what their residents are going through. We're not sure if some of the seniors' concerns always gets up to their level, but we want them to be at the table so they can hear directly from the seniors. And it was a meeting that caused a lot of controversy, but again, I mean that's not something I have ever shied away from. Thank you so much for calling. What's your question or comment? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi, Trippi.
Hello.
Trippi, did you say that passed away was in the gospel field?
Thomas Clay. They call him TC. He was young. He's probably in his late 30s, I think. He's from Wilmington.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Often folks just believe that there is tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
And people operate with a budget for a year. And sometimes when an elevator goes out, there's just not money in the budget for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when community people can go to, let's say, a U.S. senator or a U.S. congressperson and help to generate the kind of revenue that it takes to fix elevators and do landscaping and to fix some of the things, because everything will need repair.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of money is in the reserves?
Right.
Because you got to have reserve money in order, because these things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or insurance that says that when an elevator breaks down. But the key thing is
did you want to go to something? I want to touch on that.
Okay.
Go to something. I think that's important, that we make the management, whether it's WHA or whatever organization is managing that property, that we make them aware of the importance to have the money in the reserves for the elevators, because there are some high rises in our city that have had the same elevators breaking down year after year after year for 10 or more years, and I think that's something that's just not acceptable. I understand that things are going to come up, but it's important that we let them understand, help them to understand that has to be a priority. Like, we can't have seniors living in a 13-story building and the elevators don't work, or only one elevator works. It's not big enough. There was a senior who needed medical attention, and the elevator. There were two different size elevators. The elevator that can hold an ambulance stretcher was broken down, and they had to bring that person down. Fortunately, they were able to sit in a chair, but they had to bring them down on a chair. And that's not the first time that's happened. It's been happening, in my opinion, and in the seniors' opinion, just for too many years. And we just can't let that be okay. And we have to realize that we're paying attention, and that's why I wanted to have that meeting publicly before City Council, even though it did ruffle some feathers. But I think that was the right thing to do for the seniors. Thank you for calling. How may I help you?
Yeah, I've got a couple things I'd like to touch on, Trippi.
Yes.
First of all, I've mentioned this in meetings that I've been to before throughout the city here, that this city is a quietly dirty kept secret. That this city and the majority of the cities around this country is run by black Democrats. That's controlled by white attorney generals and white governors. Now, I hear this gentrification thing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We got to understand now, when we talk about this gentrification, the housing project that was tore down in Southbridge, on the way out of Southbridge, that they done turned into a dog training center. That was under a black person's watch. That was mayor. This that's going on now over Riverside, where they're tearing Riverside down. That's under a black mayor's watch. So, I don't buy into this gentrification, because if it is, black people is allowing it. And this city council has been black for a long time. So now that a white man has become mayor or threatened to be mayor, then all of a sudden it's gentrification. And then we make it look like that, and we need to be ashamed of ourselves, because we're starting to look like that we can't work with white people. If the mayor is white and the mayor's going, you got to give the man a chance to prove himself, if he's going to do the right thing or if he's not. You just can't disqualify him, if you understand what I'm trying to say here.
Yes, I do.
And I heard from one of your earlier guests, I think it was Mr. Washington, that we got to support each other for the sake of supporting each other. I don't feel that way. I think his exact wording was, we need to support each other in spite of. If you're black and you ain't doing the right thing for black people and the community at large, I can't support you and I can't agree with you. It don't matter what color you are. You got to do what's right. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of people lost elections this year in this city that thought they was going to hold their spot. And Mayor Williams is the first one. And a lot of people don't want to hear this, but this election had a lot to do with the way black people was ignored. And one of the main reasons was that Jeremy McDowell's shooting. If you're not going to do what's right towards the black community, the black community is going to punish you at the polls. Thanks a lot, Trippi.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Did you want to comment on anything that he said?
Well, I think that we do need to work with people. I think it should be very diverse. This is a very diverse community. I think that we have to, if you want to deal with history, you'll have to question, how other socioeconomic group people have dealt with us as a socioeconomic group with, outside of their group. And did we get the same privileges, and will we get the same privileges that the other group people will get?
Right.
Will we be torn down, all the hard work and placing people in the roles that we play, and we're just kind of wiped out as a result of that kind of playing around? But I think that we have to be diverse. I think that it should not be one or the other. But I do believe that people tend to work with people who look like them. And look how many years it took us, 200 years to get a black fire chief. It took us 200 years to get a black police chief. And only when a black guy got in there, Mayor Sills, did that kind of evidence show that that we had been eliminated, because we even thought it was that we shouldn't. And promotions and all that began to occur as a result of socioeconomic group people choosing socioeconomic group people, which has been a policy forever and ever and ever.
Right.
So I think that I believe it should be diverse, very diverse. But I do think that we should all recognize there may be some hidden negatives that may occur or may not occur as a result of not being a part of that process.
All right. And I think that's important. Like you said, it may or may not occur. But I think it's important that all of us, I'm talking outside of politics, that all of us just be a part of that process and pay attention to what happens. I think the biggest crime is going to be if we're not involved, and if we just kind of lay back and say, "See, I told you," or "See, he did do the right thing," or "He didn't do the right thing." We gotta be at that table. We gotta be willing to come out of our house and go to those community meetings and come to the city council meetings and come and just be a part of the process, so that people know they have to do the right thing. A lot of times when people don't do the right thing, it's because they know that they can get away with it. But if more people are involved, I think people have to do the right thing.
You know, as you look at history, I think the gentleman that talked to you on the phone was a great young man.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's not as nice and as great as he is.
Right.
And they may not be as willing to be diverse as he is willing to be.
Like you said, which history has shown.
Has proven, yeah. So we got to find out where the hidden threats are. And you have to make sure that those hidden threats don't affect you.
Right.
When I say you, I mean the people who want to make this a great community. And who do you put in place?
Yeah. And he made a really good point, not just because someone is of a certain ethnic group, but it has to be a qualified person. Also, we just can't vote. I don't think we should support just because a person is of a certain ethnic group. But if a person is qualified, and if a person has shown a history of being a good person, that's when you support them, not just because of whatever they may look like. I think
you're absolutely right.
Right. And I guess kind of touching on that, the Jeremy, we have to wind up in a couple minutes. It's almost 10 o'clock. But just touching on the Jeremy McDowell case, you know the case when the young man was killed in a wheelchair. I think a lot of people get lost in the fact that the Attorney General recommended that officer who fired first, that he be fired from the police department. He wasn't fired because there's a I don't want to say a loophole, but it was written that if an officer feels threatened, he can shoot first. So all that officer has to say is that they felt threatened. But they recommended that he not be a part of the police department. And right now, he's not. He's still a part of the police department, but he's not on the street. So that's saying a lot. That he was found not guilty, but he was recommended to not be on the police department, and the police department kept him, but they're not going to allow him back on the street. So what's that saying to the community? It's something to think about. I guess we can talk about it again next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
All right.
Well, I think a couple things. I think you have to be a very honest person.
And we gotta go.
Okay. So anyway, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
We'll
talk about it next Sunday. Stay tuned. Yeah. Next Sunday we will continue the conversations with the Congos. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a long 2 hours, but hopefully it was a well worth it 2 hours. Hopefully you were informed and motivated to be a part of the solution. And God willing, we will see you next Sunday.